I should have known something was off. No, scratch that. I did know. I just didn't want to believe it. You don't move into a quiet neighborhood with your girlfriend of 3 years, paint the walls together, pick out curtains, and imagine your future, only for her to screw the guy next door. But that's exactly what happened. His name was Greg. Smug, smooth-talking, divorced. Always mowing his lawn shirtless like he was auditioning for a Calvin Klein ad. I never liked the guy. But I never thought I had to worry about him. I thought I was being paranoid. Turns out paranoia would have been a blessing. Back then, I was working long shifts at the warehouse. 16 hours some days. I'd come home late, shoulders aching, fingers raw, just dreaming of collapsing into her arms. And she'd greet me with that soft smile, a kiss on the cheek, and freshly made dinner. It felt like love. It looked like love. But it wasn't. The first red flag? The sudden perfume. Not hers. A scent I didn't recognize. Musky. Masculine. She said it was a sample from the mall. Then there was the laughing. Late at night. Through the walls. Through the damn vent. Our townhouse shared a wall with Greg's. I'd hear muffled giggles, hers. And a man's voice. His. At first I thought I was losing my mind. I'd ask her about it and she'd just smile, stroke my hair, and say, "You're overworked, baby. Come to bed." I wanted to believe her. God, I needed to believe her. But the truth always finds a way to crawl out. And it started with a text. A single, stupid text. I was doing laundry. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She was in the shower. I don't snoop. I never snoop. But something in me, call it instinct, told me to look. One message. From G. Can't stop thinking about last night. When can I taste you again? My stomach flipped. My hands went numb. I stood there, frozen, listening to the water run in the bathroom like it was miles away. I stared at those words like they were carved into stone. And just like that, the world I thought I knew cracked. I didn't confront her right away. I couldn't. My heart was pounding so loud I thought she'd hear it over the shower. I deleted the message, placed the phone back exactly where it was, and walked outside like a ghost. I sat on the front steps, breathing in the cold evening air, trying to make sense of the storm now raging in my chest. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it wasn't what it sounded like. Maybe she was being harassed? I was desperate to give her the benefit of the doubt. But deep down, I already knew. You don't write a message like that unless there's a reason. And that reason wasn't innocent. For the next few days I watched. Not like a stalker, like a man trying to hold his life together. I started noticing things. The way she dressed when I wasn't home. Tight clothes, low-cut tops, more makeup than usual. She said it made her feel good. Confidence is healthy, she'd say with that same sweet smile that once made me feel safe. Now it just made me feel sick. Greg started showing up more. Not inside our place, but close enough. Helping her carry groceries, fixing something in the yard, accidentally knocking on the door when I wasn't supposed to be home. Once I caught him handing her something over the fence. A small box wrapped in black paper. She blushed. She actually blushed. I didn't say anything. I wanted to. I wanted to scream. But I just stood there, watching as the woman I loved played house with someone who lived 20 feet from our bedroom window. That night, she made spaghetti. My favorite. Lit candles. Wore that blue dress I once told her made her look like the sky before a storm. She was perfect. Too perfect. Like a magician distracting the audience while she hid the blade. As we ate, she told me how much she missed me, how proud she was of how hard I worked. She reached across the table, held my hand, and looked into my eyes. And lied. I felt like I was looking at a stranger wearing her face. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there beside her, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe. Wondering if he'd heard those same breaths through the wall. Wondering if he'd touched the same skin. Whispered the same things. The next day, I decided to get proof. I knew I couldn't live in limbo. Not knowing was worse than the pain of confirmation. So I did something I never thought I would. I bought a small voice recorder, nothing fancy, just enough to pick up sound through a thin wall. I hid it behind the bookshelf in the living room, right where it touched the shared wall with Greg's unit. I felt like a criminal. Like I was betraying her. But how do you betray someone who's already broken you? That night, I acted normal. We watched a movie, cuddled on the couch, even had sex. And it killed me. Every touch felt fake. Every moan a lie. I kept thinking, was she imagining him? Was I just a stand-in for someone else's fantasy? After she fell asleep, I got up and retrieved the recorder. I locked myself in the bathroom, sat on the floor, and hit play. It started with silence. Then footsteps. Then laughter. Familiar, cruel laughter. Her voice. His voice. Muffled but distinct. "Is he working late again?" she asked, a low chuckle in her throat. "Always," he said. "You sure you're okay with this?" I've never been more sure of anything. Then the sounds I'll never forget. Kissing. Moaning. The creak of furniture. Her voice, breathless, saying things she never said to me. Things that made me feel like I was underwater, suffocating on betrayal. I stopped the recording, dropped the device on the floor, and sat there for what felt like hours. It wasn't just a fling. It wasn't a mistake. This was planned. Ongoing. Comfortable. Like they'd done it 100 times. Like he wasn't my neighbor. Like she wasn't supposed to be my forever. The next morning I didn't say anything. I went through the motions. Made her coffee. Kissed her on the forehead. Watched her sip it like everything was normal. Like she hadn't given herself to another man just a few feet away. I went to work, but I didn't work. I sat in my truck for hours, staring at the steering wheel, trying to imagine what my life looked like now. Trying to imagine where I'd sleep, who I'd tell, how I'd recover. Every plan I ever made with her evaporated. I couldn't confront her without losing control. I needed one more piece. One more confirmation before I pulled the pin and let everything explode. So I took the next step. I came home early. I left work that day around noon, told my supervisor I wasn't feeling well. That wasn't a lie. My stomach was in knots, my chest tight, like I was carrying something heavy and invisible. I drove home slowly, every turn of the wheel feeling like a countdown. I wasn't even sure what I expected. Maybe she'd be alone, maybe I'd catch nothing. Maybe I was still clinging to the smallest hope that I was wrong, that this nightmare was just a cruel misunderstanding. But I wasn't wrong. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw Greg's car parked one space over, right outside his place. That in itself wasn't proof. But I knew. I just knew. The blinds in our living room were drawn, which was unusual. Normally, sunlight poured into that space. Today, it was dark. Secretive. I didn't use my key. I didn't knock. I walked around the side of the house and slipped in through the sliding back door we always left unlocked, her habit, not mine. I moved like a ghost, my footsteps silent on the hardwood floors. My heart pounded in my ears. And then I heard it. Voices. Low. Intimate. Coming from upstairs. I crept up slowly, every step a betrayal of the life I thought I had. I reached the top, turned the corner toward our bedroom, and the door was slightly ajar. Just enough. I saw his shirt on the floor first. Then hers. Then bare feet tangled in sheets. My sheets. My bed. Her back was to me, her hair messy, her voice soft. Greg was lying next to her, his hand tracing lazy circles on her thigh. I stood there for a second that felt like a century. Then I pushed the door open. They both froze. She gasped and scrambled to pull the sheet over herself. Greg just stared, eyes wide, mouth open like a guilty child caught stealing candy. Nobody said anything. For a few seconds, it was just breathing, disbelief, the sound of hearts breaking. Don't stop on my account, I said, my voice calm, colder than I expected. I just came to grab some clothes. Didn't mean to interrupt your little afternoon delight. Her eyes welled up and she started to speak, some excuse, some lie, but I raised my hand. Don't, I said. Just, don't insult me more than you already have. Greg tried to say something too, some pathetic attempt at apology or explanation, but I wasn't listening. I turned, walked to the closet, grabbed a duffel bag, and started stuffing it with whatever I could reach: shirts, socks, jeans. I didn't look at them again. As I walked back down the stairs, she followed me, wrapped in the sheet like it could hide the truth. Please, she said, her voice cracking. Let's talk. I made a mistake. I stopped at the door and turned around. No, I said. A mistake is forgetting to turn off the oven. This was a choice. Over and over again. You chose him. You chose this. So now live with it. And I walked out. I didn't cry. Not then. Not until I reached the car. That's when the weight finally crushed me. That's when I broke. I stayed in a motel that night. One of those sad little roadside ones with buzzing lights and faded carpet where the smell of bleach can't quite cover the decades of regret soaked into the walls. I lay on a bed that wasn't mine, staring at the ceiling, hearing the faint noise of a TV through the wall, and feeling like my entire life had been ripped out from under me. There was no rage. Not anymore. Just a hollow ache. Like grief, but colder. I wasn't mourning her, I was mourning who I thought she was. Mourning the man I was when I believed in her. The man who believed in love, loyalty, and promises. She called me. Over and over. I didn't answer. I watched the phone light up in the dark, her name glowing on the screen like a ghost. Each ring was a reminder. Of her voice. Her laugh. Her betrayal. Eventually, I turned the phone off and let the silence swallow me. The next morning, I went to work. I didn't want to sit alone with my thoughts. I needed noise, movement, something to drown out the images that played on repeat in my mind. But the guys at work could tell something was wrong. I wasn't myself. I dropped things. Zoned out. Snapped when someone asked me a simple question. My supervisor pulled me aside, asked if everything was okay. I lied. Said I was just tired. He nodded, didn't press. But I could feel the sympathy in his eyes. That made it worse. I didn't want pity. I wanted to rewind time. Or fast forward past the pain. After work, I drove to my brother's place. Told him everything. Every goddamn detail. He listened, didn't interrupt, didn't judge. Just handed me a beer and said, "You're not staying in a motel. Grab your stuff. You're staying here until you figure things out." I moved in that night. Days passed. She kept calling. Left voicemails. Sent texts. Some were full of guilt and apologies. Others were angry, like I had overreacted. One message said it didn't mean anything. That one hit the hardest. Because if it meant nothing, then what did we mean? Greg never reached out. Coward. A week later, she showed up at my brother's door. I opened it and saw her standing there with puffy eyes and that same damn sheet of sorrow wrapped around her face like a veil. She asked to come in. I said no. She begged me to talk. I told her I had nothing left to say. And then she dropped a bomb. "I ended it with him," she said. "I made a mistake. I want to fix us." I laughed. Actually laughed. A bitter, broken sound that didn't feel like it belonged to me. "You didn't end it because you regret it," I said. "You ended it because you got caught." She tried to reach for me. I stepped back. "You chose him," I repeated. "Now you have to live with that." And I closed the door. You know what they don't tell you about betrayal? It doesn't just break your heart, it shatters your identity. It poisons every memory. Suddenly, every sweet moment becomes a lie. Every kiss tastes like manipulation in hindsight. Every "I love you" echoes with sarcasm. I couldn't look at photos of us. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I kept wondering, was I that blind? That naive? How did I miss it? Did I ever really know her? Or was I just a placeholder until something more exciting came along? Living at my brother's place helped. He didn't ask questions unless I wanted to talk. He gave me space, but he also gave me structure, something to hold on to when everything else felt like quicksand. We'd watch TV, order pizza, joke around. It was simple, and in a way, it was healing. But the nights were the worst. That's when the silence crept in. The stillness. That's when I'd hear her voice in my head, laughing in ways she hadn't laughed with me in months. That's when I'd remember the way she'd roll over and curl into me after sex. And I'd wonder if she did the same thing with him. If he touched the same places. If he made her feel things I couldn't. Jealousy is a disease. And the worst part? It doesn't need a reason. It just needs a crack, and betrayal gives you nothing but cracks. I started running at night. Just to burn the thoughts out of my head. Miles and miles until my legs ached and my lungs screamed. I'd come back dripping in sweat, but somehow a little bit lighter. One night, maybe 3 weeks after I left her, I bumped into a neighbor who used to live next door to us, an older woman named Janet. She gave me the concerned look old ladies specialize in and said, "Haven't seen you around lately. Everything okay?" I forced a smile. "Just needed a change." She nodded. Then, without even meaning harm, she dropped another knife. "That friend of yours, the one who lived next door, he's had a lot of visitors lately. Different cars. Mostly women. Guess he moves on quick, huh?" I nodded, managed a polite chuckle, but inside I was boiling. So she was just one of many. Just another notch. Just another fool in his collection. That hurt more than I expected. Not because I wanted her back, but because I hated thinking I gave my love, my everything, to someone who was nothing more than a temporary thrill for a man who treated women like trophies. That night I blocked her number. For good. It wasn't healing. Not yet. But it was a start. It's funny how betrayal echoes. Long after the person is gone, the noise they made in your life keeps bouncing off the walls of your mind. A scent in a store reminds you of her shampoo. A song in the background at a bar cracks open a memory you didn't know was still alive. You catch yourself smiling at a joke and then remember who used to laugh with you like that, and suddenly you're not smiling anymore. Time doesn't heal. Time distills. It strips away the shock and leaves behind something heavier, something more honest, the raw truth of what was lost and what it cost you to survive it. I began going through our old things, or rather, my things, now stuffed into boxes in my brother's garage. There were photo albums, concert tickets, handwritten notes. I sat there one evening, alone, with a beer in one hand and a crumpled letter in the other. It was from her, early in our relationship. She'd written it on our 6-month anniversary. Said I was her safe place, her future, her one. The ink was slightly smudged at the bottom where her fingers must have pressed too hard, or maybe where a tear had fallen. I wanted to burn it. I wanted to keep it. I ended up folding it neatly and putting it back in the box. I wasn't ready to let go, but I was learning how to live without her. The hardest part wasn't losing her, it was losing the version of myself that existed when I believed in her. I missed the man who trusted easily, who believed love could be simple and real. That man was gone. And in his place stood someone more guarded, more tired, but maybe, just maybe, stronger. People started noticing. At work, guys stopped asking about her. They treated me like a man who'd walked through fire and didn't want to talk about the burns. One of them, Rick, pulled me aside one afternoon and said, "Whatever you're doing to stay sane, keep doing it. You look like you're finding your feet again." I nodded but didn't respond. What was I doing to stay sane? Mostly surviving. Running. Working. Avoiding. Trying not to fall into the pit of comparison, wondering what she was doing, who she was with, if she missed me. I had deleted her number, sure, but not the thoughts. Healing isn't pretty. It's not linear. One day you feel like you're ready to meet someone new, and the next, you're staring at your phone at 2 a.m. wondering what she would say if you called. But I didn't call. I never did. Instead, I went to therapy. Quietly. No big announcements. Just showed up, week after week, and unpacked my grief like luggage I'd carried too far. My therapist, a calm woman named Dana, listened more than she spoke. And when she did speak, she never told me what to do, she just asked better questions than I could ask myself. Like, what did you lose besides her? That one haunted me for days. Because the answer wasn't just love. It was trust. Home. Certainty. And I wanted those things back. Months passed. Seasons changed. The sting faded, but the scar remained. I moved out of my brother's place eventually, found a small apartment on the edge of town. It wasn't much, just 2 rooms, a leaky faucet, and creaky floors, but it was mine. No memories soaked into the walls. No shared bed to haunt me. Just space. Space to breathe. Space to begin again. I didn't hear from her after that final attempt at reconciliation. I imagined she moved on. Maybe she was with someone else. Maybe she went back to Greg, or maybe she realized too late what she'd lost. I didn't know. I didn't ask. I didn't want to know anymore. Obsessing over her choices was like drinking poison and hoping she'd suffer. I had to stop feeding the ghost. But closure's a strange thing. Sometimes it arrives when you least expect it, not as a grand gesture or a tearful apology, but in something quiet. Something absurdly ordinary. It happened one Saturday morning. I went back to the old neighborhood. Not for her, I was helping a buddy move, someone who had just bought a place 2 blocks from where I used to live. I hadn't set foot on that street since I left it in pieces. And when I parked my truck and stepped out, the memories hit me like a wave. The sound of wind chimes on her porch. The familiar crack in the sidewalk I used to trip over. And then, there it was. Greg's house. Still the same smug paint job. Still that damn lawn. But different now. Empty. Abandoned. Windows covered. For sale sign crooked in the grass. I asked my friend about it, casually, like it didn't mean a thing. "Oh yeah," he said. "That guy? He moved out months ago. Heard he got into some kind of trouble. Something with another guy's wife. Real messy." I almost laughed. Of course he did. Of course the pattern continued. He wasn't a one-time mistake. He was a serial destroyer. And she, well, she was just one stop on his road of wreckage. And for the first time, I didn't feel hurt. I didn't feel bitter. I felt pity. Not for him. Not even for her. For the version of me that thought love meant sacrificing everything. That thought loyalty was always reciprocated. On the drive home, I didn't take the highway. I took the long way through old streets, past forgotten diners and empty lots. I rolled the windows down and let the wind hit my face. No music. Just road and air. I didn't cry. I didn't clench my jaw. I just drove. And for the first time in a long, long while, I felt free. You'd think the end of a story like mine would come with some kind of dramatic closure. A new love. A powerful comeback. A moment where the world suddenly makes sense again. But real life doesn't work like that. Healing doesn't have a soundtrack. It doesn't come with applause or recognition. It comes in the quiet, in those moments where you realize you're not angry anymore. Where you forget to think about them. It happened one Sunday afternoon. I was standing in line at a coffee shop, minding my own business, scrolling through my phone, when I heard a laugh behind me. And for half a second, my heart stopped because it sounded just like hers. My body tensed, my chest tightened, but when I turned around, it wasn't her. Just a stranger. That moment broke something in me in the best way. It made me realize how much of my life I had spent waiting for echoes. Expecting the past to walk back into the room. Hoping or dreading that she might reappear, even if just in memory. But now? I didn't care. I didn't chase it. I didn't need it. Later that week, I found myself at a bar with some friends from work. We laughed, drank, played darts. Nothing special. But when I got home that night, a strange thought hit me. I hadn't thought about her once. Not even a passing memory. And that realization felt more intimate than any closure she could have given me. I stopped comparing new people to her. I stopped measuring my pain against hers. I stopped imagining what I'd say if I saw her again. I realized I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't need to. I'd just walk away. Not out of hate, but because she simply didn't matter anymore. One evening, while going through old files on my laptop, I stumbled upon a folder labeled Us. Photos, videos, screenshots of conversations, all artifacts of a life I no longer lived. For a moment, I hovered over the delete button. Then, without fanfare, I clicked it. Delete. Empty recycle bin. Gone. Not in rage. Not in grief. Just peace. I didn't need souvenirs from a war I no longer fought. Looking back now, it's strange to think how a single person can upend your entire sense of reality and how somehow you still survive it. You don't think you will at first. You believe the pain will eat you alive. But it doesn't. It reshapes you. It scrapes you raw and then slowly, painfully, you rebuild. I'm not the same man I was when I moved into that townhouse. I'm not as trusting. Not as open. But I'm also not as blind. I've learned to see people more clearly, to recognize the signs, the energy, the small silences between words. And I've learned that love, real love, doesn't hide behind locked doors or whispered lies through thin walls. Some nights I still think about her. Not with longing, more like you think about a scar. You touch it, feel the roughness, remember what caused it, and move on. She was a chapter. A hard one. One filled with betrayal, lies, and sharp turns. But it's over now. And I live to turn the page. What remains is not bitterness. I've let that go. What remains is clarity. Strength. A deeper understanding of who I am and what I'll never tolerate again. I started dating again slowly. Cautiously. I wasn't looking for someone to save me. I had already saved myself. I was just curious to see what love might look like without the blindfold. I met people who were kind. Some who were not. But none of them were her, and that, oddly, was comforting. One woman I met, Leah, was different. She didn't rush me. Didn't push. Just listened. She didn't try to fix what was broken. She just accepted it. And in that, I found something rare, peace. I don't know where it will go. I don't need to. For now, I'm just grateful to feel something soft again. So here's the truth, if anyone out there needs to hear it. You can be shattered by betrayal and still put yourself back together. You can be lied to, cheated on, humiliated, and still rise. You can walk away from the wreckage of a love that wasn't real and find something better in the stillness after. Betrayal doesn't get the last word. You do. And mine is this: I survived. And now, I live.